the radio tuning is exactly right? Like if you, and I'm assuming that radio works the same everywhere, right? So if you have a station that is only broadcasting on like 96.1 and you are on your radio on like 105.5, you're not going to hear what 96.1 is broadcasting. Even if you were on like 96.3, you wouldn't really hear what 96.1 is broadcasting. It might be fuzzy, then there's static. It's like it's kind of trying to get in there. And our bodies, our minds, everything pretty much works the same way.
Welcome to HolisticCircle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about love. Today I'm getting the intro wrong. Finally, that's so wonderful. The first time this year it's wrong, and I will not repeat it. Let's stay like this. The world has to accept that. Welcome back, Dr. Asia Taylor. Thank you very much for being, again, the fourth time. How many times you've been with me now?
I think this is the third one, right? I feel like now I should get a jacket like on SNL.
Oh, you're wrong. Chris has the 24th video.
He should definitely have a jacket. See, I'm not saying he shouldn't have a jacket. I'm saying I should have a jacket. See, we should both have jackets.
I'm just saying, you're like 20-something videos away from the jacket, but I'm giving you a mental jacket or like a parking one for you, hoping that will make the 20 video mark.
I have goals.
I'm so happy that you're back and on the audience with my stumbled introduction. Welcome back. And this is somehow the second part of a conversation. We already made one recording. If you go back, I'm going to maybe put the link in this recording to the first recording and to the first recording, the second recording. So it's a loose double session. We talked about frequencies. We talked about in our last session, we really built it from the ground up, from the body level. And we just stopped recording when things started to get interesting. And we're going into the higher frequencies. And that's why I said, no, we have to make a second session so we don't stop right before things actually get crazy. So if you're watching this, you're lucky. You're part of the crazy conversation when we talk about higher frequencies and how it all works and what it means. And maybe anyway, if you'd be so kind, just give a quick self-introduction so that people know about you.
Okay, no worries. And thank you for having me again. Even if there's no jacket yet, I'm going to just, work for the goal. I'm putting it on my calendar now. The goal is, 20 sessions with Philipp. But I said that I am Dr. Asia Taylor. The Soulful Creatrix is the name of my business. I work with vibration and frequency. And my goal is to be a force for coherence in a world that's addicted to chaos. So I work through, spiritual guidance, frequency, vibration, energy work, and I help my clients to find that alignment that they're likely missing because they were taught that it doesn't exist.
Thank you so much. Somehow I have a feeling that you have a different background today. Are you turned your table or what happened here?
It's my dog. There it is. My dog keeps busting into the door. Like he's figured out how to open the door and he's like, no, close doors. And so like when he comes in, he just like busts through the door and he opens the whole door. So it makes like a little background.
Okay. That's it. I noticed these small things, right?
Yeah.
As a almost jacket person, I know the smallest changes in the background.
Yeah, now he's sitting like right here. But I have been working on like the background, not as a background, but it's my office space. I was working to be more like aligned with what my office space should be. And so I put in like the shelves and the books so that it would actually make a nice background, but it's actually stuff that I use.
Yeah, there you go. And I remember in our first video, you played a little bit live music for us. You were drumming and you had the sound balls. And I just had a wonderful episode. You should watch it with a Jazz for Peace. And he was playing jazz live on the show. It was fantastic.
Oh, I love that.
Such a privilege Yes, but this is like the third time I had music on my podcast. So I'm starting to think I might change the theme of podcasting from spirituality into music, because it's so relaxing to sit here and have someone play, like a world famous renowned jazz artist, just play to you in that moment one-on-one before it gets out to the world. It felt very privileged.
Yes, I love jazz. I love, like, jazz still has soul. Like, somebody mentioned that AI was making jazz, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, you'll know that it's not jazz. It's AI created music that's supposed to sound like jazz, but it's not jazz.
Don't get me started. I'm giving up on AI these days completely because, once you realize it doesn't have a feeling, it doesn't have any of these, and it doesn't care. So it's a sociopath. And once it sinks really in, that it's just a tool, and most probably not even it just mimics intelligent, or it mimics this and that. But there's always will be a difference between mimicking and actually performing it. And I guess maybe one day we're going to get true artificial intelligence. But as impressive the results are, but these results are just mimics and pretend, and they might help us a lot doing homework or whatnot. But ultimately, it is just soulless. It has no feeling and clearly no vibration. So therefore, most probably anti-vibration. Therefore, I'm kind of like becoming more relaxed from the panic I had 1 year back, thinking we're all, are going to lose our jobs and stuff like that. And now I realize it's going to be far less dramatic than thought.
Yeah, because people like us that like seek soul, are we soul seekers? Like, we seek the soul, or we are in tuned with what the soul feels like. We can just tell it's not there. It's missing something. Like, I even had a friend, and she used a picture that AI generated of her, like, on her business site. And I was like, has AI eyes. Like, you can tell it's not you. There's like no soul in the eyes. It's missing. Yeah, you can tell. So I think we're safe.
I think with our relaxed, being very friendly way of starting this podcast, we lost 90% of all audience.
I'm sorry.
No, that's my fault. We didn't start with a bang. No crazy, very catchy, viral moments right from the start. So,
I'm going to give it to you. You are God, Philip. That's what I've been talking to everybody about now, is you are God.
Wow, that's very viral.
How about that? Let's go there. My Kanye moment.
3 minutes too late.
They can just start it there. We'll start it there and like erase all the other parts.
Everything. You start Philip is God, and we're gonna get 70% gonna stay on the video to listen to the voice of God. No, we cannot make fun of God, dear Lord. But that's gonna get angry comments. Oh, no. That's also bad.
No, okay, no, you don't want people. Those. But it is what I've been discussing most recently, and it kind of ties into the AI conversation. So
yeah.
And
I started earning money on people clicking on the link. So I don't care if you're angry, click, or if you're happy, click. I mean, I make money anyway. So I'm not sure if I want 1 million angry people. Well, bring it on, my friend.
Which is crazy, because you get like 3 angry people and then the algorithm feels like, oh yeah, this is good. And then they push it out. But if you have 3 happy people who were sitting there listening to it, the algorithm's like, we probably need a little bit more. Let's wait and see what else happens, before they push it out. So
that's the real God of our time. It's the algorithm. I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's give people an idea. So, all right, frequencies. I'm sure if you listen to Spiritual Podcast, you're open or interested in frequencies and you have ideas what frequencies are all about. But nevertheless, if you be so kind, because there's always new people coming in, and if they're so brave that they're still listening to us rumbling about, they deserve a bit of a background, what frequencies are, how we in the spiritual world see them, or how we think that this is all works. Make a quick couple-minute introduction, and then let's go into higher frequencies, if you'd be so kind.
Well, so like I've mentioned, several times, frequency is basically the number that's assigned to how fast something is vibrating, right? How fast a unit is vibrating. So everything is vibrating. That's a given. It's a fact. Everything is vibrating. And we have assigned a frequency in hertz, which is how fast something is vibrating per second, let's say. So that's all frequency is. Like, people want to make it, something huge. It's not. It's just a number scientifically assigned to how fast something is vibrating. So you and I, we look like we're thick, like we're solid, like you can't get through us. And so we get a lower number for the frequency, the 100s, the 60s, the 30s, the 20s, The Earth has its own vibrational frequency. It's about 7.8 hertz. So it's, how many times it vibrates. It's thick, it's big and massive. It has a very low number. So that's really all it is. So the higher the frequency, we're then talking when we're up in the thousands, 2000s, the 5000s, we're talking about frequencies that you can't see for how fast something is vibrating. And that's when we start talking about the higher the frequency, the closer to God. That's what, remember I said that before. When we're talking about higher frequency numbers, we're talking about images you can't see, lights, feeling, with higher frequencies that you can't really see.
And maybe if I add, thank you so much for making the first half of this, because the funny thing is, you said it so many times, and the truth is, I've been listening it 1,000 times, and still each and every time, to me, it is an inspiration. I don't know why, but you can tell it another 100 times, another 1,000 times, and I can hear it. Even if I think I know a bit about that stuff, it still each and every time holds a kind of inspirational knowledge, because it is hard to grasp. It's hard to understand that we are sending frequencies and that we are receiving frequencies, and that we are in tune, that we are off tune. And as this works, and we talked about it last time on the body level, if it's with chakras or meridians, all of these healing things, that is all about frequencies being in harmony, or being too much or being too little, being out of rhythm or overridden or whatever. And that healing, a lot of healing, like sound healing, like meditational healing, but also herbal healing, is about bringing these frequencies down, up, back into sync and whatnot. So this is but I have this funny thing on my algorithm. I don't know why it catched me. Obviously, it knows more about me than I do. And there's this funny little video clip about a sound fork. What's it called in English?
Tuning fork.
Tuning fork. Thank you very much. That's the English word. And there's the professor holding one tuning fork. And then there's another tuning fork, and behind, I think it's a ball. Mm-hmm. And the first tuning fork is the wrong one compared to the second one. And he bumps it and nothing happens. The ball stays where it is. And then ultimately he takes the same tuning fork, A to B, and then he bumps on the first tuning fork. And then through the air, the vibrations catch the second tuning fork, and then the ball starts to swing. And I think it's one of the most impressive visuals when you talk about higher spirituality or connecting with angels and all of these things, that you understand that it's been stressed by many of my podcast guests. All there is that you learn, like a radio, to tune yourself to the correct frequency, and the communication starts like an antenna that starts to happen. So this is now second part, so we can start right with the big frequencies and the closer to God. Let's jump right into it. What is your personal take, experience? Where do you stand with? And by the way, I didn't forget that we last time both of us agreed that people are obsessed in the spirituality to as quickly as possible go into higher frequencies. And you and me in a complete alignment that is just not wrong, but basically not the best choice. That it would be much more better to just build it from the ground up, have respect even for the lower frequencies. But everybody's anxious. They want to have the angels and aura seeing and whatnot. It's, of course, that's why people get into the game. So everybody's pushing to the higher frequencies. But so we talked about it last time. But let's talk now about the higher frequencies without any warning. Let's jump into it. So what's your take on the radio tuning idea?
So the radio tuning is exactly right? Like if you, and I'm assuming that radio works the same everywhere, right? So if you have a station that is only broadcasting on like 96.1, right? And you are on your radio on like 105.5, you're not going to hear what 96.1 is broadcasting. Even if you were on like 96.3, you wouldn't really hear what 96.1 is broadcasting. It might be fuzzy, then there's static. It's like it's kind of trying to get in there, right? And our bodies, our minds, everything pretty much works the same way. So we have like specific frequencies. What do I have here? I have the solar plexus. I'm going to share with you 126.22, right? That frequency would be the frequency of the sun, actually, in our bodies. But we like to say that that's that solar plexus area, that below the rib cage, above the belly button area, would be like what we are broadcasting out as our true self. If we were the sun in astrology, it'd be like our sun sign, what we are sharing to the world, our Care Bear stare. If you remember the Care Bears from back in the day, and they all had like a little symbol on their belly, right? And that was just who they were, right? Grumpy had like a little cloud and whatever. So the solar plexus, for our example, would be our Care Bear stare, who we are, our willpower, our power center, okay? And so we would use the 126.22, which was cosmically considered the sun's frequency, to help us with attuning, aligning, and training that area back to an aligned state, right? Or a more powerful state if you're going to use it to broadcast out who you are. So there's several different frameworks, right? And I talked about this in my book, okay? So you can go like a cosmic framework and say 126.22, that's the solar plexus, because that's, for the sun. I would use it and put it on my body. I'm trying to see if I can even share with you how it would sound, but you're going to be able to hear it. Were you able to hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, because remember, we can never tell. But also, people would say, okay, it would be the E notes. If you were just going to go harmonically, the E notes would give you that same alignment. So when we're talking chakra work, you would say, okay, I'm going to use the E. And the E, whether high E, low E, it's going to align with that solar plexus work. So there are many different ways to do it. And what you're saying is, I'm tuning in to that frequency so that that frequency will entrain what's out of alignment with my body back into alignment. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, of course, it makes sense.
Okay. So when we're talking higher frequencies, so that was 126.22, low frequency, okay, it's in our body. So if you remember, I mentioned higher frequencies are going to be outside of our body, away, So this would be 1088.8. It's considered an Om frequency. It's when we're talking about communication with the divine, alignment with spirit, Om. Okay, so this would be, hold on. Were you able to hear that one?
Of course, great.
Oh, okay. And then, even higher, we would get when we're trying to like clear air, like sage air, we would go with a higher frequency. And so there we're saying, okay, angels, spirits, whatever is there that is not supposed to be there, go, and only helpful, aligned things that are, for the work that we're trying to do should be there. So the higher you go, the more we're talking about like spiritual, cosmic, outside of us type of energy. The problem is people want to start here. They want to start here when we should be way below, even working our solar plexus and down into the root, grounding the humanitarian, the human portion of it, where we're touching the earth. And that's how you end up getting a lot of these wackadoodle psychosis type situations where people did not do both parts. They didn't ground. They wanted to go off and talk to God. They did not keep that human portion of themselves. And so that's the definition of a spiritual psychosis for most people.
And also there's a question, I think, that psychosis is an extreme example. But first of all, let's talk about, there's so many things we have to talk about it now. And luckily we have 1 hour, so let's do it. The first thing is about also, where would you see personally a trained person who's done the groundwork, who's done the preparational work? What frequencies do you think, how far can we go as a trained person? Where do you see your frequency limits? So that'd be interesting, how you see the frequencies we're able to connect and to respond to, tune into.
So anybody who's trained typically will say the same thing, typically. And it's that you always start with grounding, regardless of how far you're wanting to go with your journey. So even in shamanic practice, we always start with grounding. In any work that I'm doing ancestrally, I always start with grounding. Anytime that I'm working with a client, we always start with grounding. So regardless, if someone wants to start you off on a mat and say, okay, let's just start flying away, they're not being honest or real with the practice. They're not being safe. It's not safe, basically. And so we always want to start with grounding. And then what happens is, as you're working through, you can tell where something is off or something is aligned. If we get to, we're working with grounding and then we work our way up to, let's say, the heart space. And your heart space is not aligned, not open, not where it should be in order to get to the next level to keep going up. You're not going to really get very far. So we would always, we want to ideally, I don't want to speak for everybody. Ideally, we want to make sure that our clients or ourselves have that heart space that is open. It's the doorway, the gateway, the path, the way, right? You can't get to the rest of it without getting that part open. So if someone says, okay, we're working through grounding and now we're just going to go talk to God, right? Without knowing whether or not that heart space is even in a space to be able to get you there, then again, it's not aligned. It's not realistic. They're not being realistic with you at that point. And that's when you get.
How far can you go as a trained person? How far do you think you can go as a trained person?
I think that yogis, masters, shamanic practitioners who are like, all they do all day, they may start at the beginning of the day and just go for hours and hours and hours. I wouldn't know, because I would assume you can go into ascension. That's where ascension starts to, take place, right? That nirvana or ascension, that Christ consciousness, awakening type, stuff, walking on water and creating miracles, right? I think that's where that starts to play in. If you're at that level and you're still moving it out, being able to travel interdimensionally, being able to, sit with other people, past, present, and future, that's ideally where we would all like to be if we had the time, but we tend not to.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about last time, so just like quick recap, there's of course dangers involved.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I'm sure you can in the weekend when you have the right setting and when you have a person that pushing your frequencies have quite an experience. But there are a couple of issues. If you haven't done the groundwork, first of all, it cannot be repeated and definitely on your own. So when you're out of the seminar setting, out of whatever takes place there, you can't hold it. So someone brought you there who maybe know how to do the trick, but it's not a real place that you've gone on your own foot.
Right.
So that's
and
number
people
one.
tend to seek that over and over again. It becomes its own drug that you are,
Exactly.
trying to get there, trying to get higher without having that grounding of knowing that it's not the goal. It can be used as a tool. You use it when you need to, not I'm going to stay here all the time, all day, every day. Like it should not be sought as this is the level, because humans, the experience of humanity is not that portion of it where we're back in our spirit form. The experience of humanity is the grind of it all, right? The muck and the gross part. And how are we handling that? And how do we live through that? And what are we making with what we're given?
Thank you. That's this time you said it, not me. I'm so happy if it's not on my shoulders.
I will take it. Yes.
Very much so. But so first of all, if you don't walk there on your own feet, what is it worth it? Secondly, there is the problem if your system is not being cleaned, if you're overloaded with frequencies, it can do harm. Was probably body harm, organ harm, or psychotic harm, or other things, if you're just not prepared to receive such a high frequencies. And last but not least, there is not only pure entities out there, and if you start playing with the stuff that you don't really understand, and you haven't done the groundwork and the protection work that you should have done, then you don't really know who's coming through. So it might be sounding like the voice of God, but who knows who is it? And fourth, and maybe also to be considered, do you actually really want to hear the voice of God? Because he might tell you, no, go to Africa and heal people who have leprosy or something like that. Sell your car, sell your house. It's me, God. That's what I want you to do. I mean, it's quite a dangerous thing, to start calling God, because, he's not fooling around with that kind of stuff. Just, to put it in perspective, that it's not that you have to be ready to get the message, and you should really ask yourself quite honestly, am I ready to receive the message? And am I ready to act on what maybe I've been told, right?
Exactly. And I had that conversation with a client like 2 weeks ago. I was explaining to her what we're trying to do, like what is her intention, what she's wanting. These are her words, what she was wanting to do, right? And I'm explaining to her the process and how it'll work and, kind of what it'll entail. And then she kind of looks at me and then she's like, okay, wait, but is this going to mess up my life? Like, I don't want to do something that's going to... And that was her word. She was like, I don't want to do something like, is this going to make it harder for me? And I was like, yeah, likely. That's what I said. I said, I should come with like a warning label. Hanging out with me, you might quit your job. You might just people may think you're crazy afterwards.
You might be friendly to your wife. You might start to love your kids. I mean, bad things happen to good people,
Exactly. You might actually become a nice person, but you might,
that's
you might
the worst,
quit your job.
That's the worst outcome possible. You're a grumpy grandfather. Everything is settled, Can you take care on the weekend? No. And all of a sudden, sure, bring it on.
Yeah, because people want the good parts. They want hey, now I'm a nice person, but they don't want the path that you go through. And there's always a breaking, right? There's something that has to be let go. There is an exchange that has to happen. And, I'm like, and if that exchange includes you now having to look at yourself in a mirror and say, is this what I like, or is this not what I like? Hey, I'm making 250,000, US a year. I'm an asshole though, like, there might be an exchange that happens, and you want to be able to go and talk to, what you feel is God. And now you're getting the message. You need to exchange this 250K for a more righteous path where you do end up in Africa feeding, people, or even, I don't know, Wisconsin here in the United States. Like, you just have to go, you have to go and provide healthcare to people in the United States. I don't know, something, kind of.
Oh, there's a crazy guy,
Yeah.
He persistently wants good things for people,
And it's like, I think that the goal was supposed to be that all humans eat, all humans have love, all humans,
Crazy man, I'm telling you, crazy.
Ideas, right? Like, and so if you're being called to that mission of making sure that we are all aligned, we are all in coherence, we are all, not chaotic. And now your purpose is to now drive the food truck. I don't know, Can you handle that? Is that something that you're willing to do? And a lot of people are like, oh, wait, hold on, wait. Can I just write a check?
Sound bath, relaxing, just a little bit of calming down, being able to stomach the reality.
I was just here for the vibrations. I did not expect that you were going to, tell me that I now need to go and read stories to children, and I don't have time for it. And that's exactly what happened.
I just want the vibration. I don't want that. Let me just quick hang in there, because there's something I've noticed recently. So, there's always trends and popularity. Maybe you have to be careful how to phrase it. But recently, I've got a lot of rich friends. I'm a businessman beside a spiritual podcaster. So unfortunately, I'm hanging out with very evil people, but that's all right. I love them. But I've recently noticed a lot of my rich friends are totally into angels and believe they are now very much, it's a new trend, because they think they can make more money and become more rich. So first of all, money mantras are super trendy. They're scribbling them down, they're repeating them. So money mantras, certain frequencies which attract money. And they also think, and they're all now desperately sitting in some yoga position. I'm not joking to you, because they want to go quick into the high frequencies, because they think then they get the secret messages how to make more money. So it's quite funny.
And how is that working out for them?
When you start with a couple of millions, what can go wrong after? I mean, probably money makes more money. I don't know if it's the angels or it's just basically circumstantial, but they're doing fine anyway. So I wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that you don't know if what you're doing is working, I guess. There's nothing to measure it by, if that makes sense. If what they were doing worked, then let's say, my cousin over on the corner could do the same thing and get great results if it were something that just automatically worked for people. But because they already have the money, then they're like, hey, I'm going to try to keep my money until the moment that they get to the God door, and it's like, hey, yeah, we need you to get rid of some of this. Like, do something with it.
That's why I told you that story, because I thought it's so interesting, because you and me are both believe, and I actually had a funny guest. I must tell you, a couple of guests I had since last time we met. And that one guy, he's more than 70 years meditation teacher. So I'm doing it 35 years. He is 70. So he clearly has a leg ahead of me. And he says a lot of times he has new people learning meditation from him. And they're like, it's not working. I'm wasting my time. And he said, just go and ask your wife. And they're like, he's so much better. He's so much calm. He's so much more friendly. So you and me are firm believers, I think, if I say that correctly, that if you do any real or honest spiritual work, it will ultimately translate into being a better father, a better mother, a better grandmother, a better person. To me, there is no way that you do real spiritual work, it will not have an effect in your life. Right. And this most likely maybe not making tons of money, or yes or no, who cares? But you will try to be more conscious, more aware of what's going on around you. You will have a better heart, as you said, and get this thing. And so then you look at these, a lot of rich people who are just into high frequencies, into, angel information to make more money, then it needs time to process. Do you think there is a possibility that you do any kind of high frequency work and that you get in this kind of half magic world and have effect without doing the inner work and without becoming a better person? Because they clearly, I can tell you, are not becoming better people.
Well, okay. So the term better person, I would say, is already like where we would start with where the problem starts, because like being a better person would imply like there's a duality, right? And one of the things that I believe, personally, is that it's not like a right and wrong. It's what we've assigned to the situation, right? So better person, worse person. I tend to feel more along the lines of like an aligned person, someone who is working in alignment with what they're here to do. And that is easier for me, instead of like adding morality to the conversation, because what is better for you may not be better for another person. But if I say, hey, Philip, I help you to be in alignment with what you're here to do, your purpose, right? And be in coherence so that what you're thinking, what you are feeling, and what you are producing are all going in the same direction, if that makes sense. And so where I think that a lot of the problem comes is that you'll have someone with a lot of money, and they'll have a lot of money. But what they're thinking may not align with what they are feeling or what they are producing, what they are giving back as their production as a human. So what they're producing may be the thing that creates more money. But what they're feeling is, this is a load of garbage. I hate this. And what they're thinking is, but it's producing a lot of money, so we got to keep it, And there's not a coherence there. And that starts to create in them negative feelings where they're maybe questioning things in life, which pours them into I want to seek a higher version. I want to seek, the conversations with God, because their heart is not in what they're doing. And they are now trying to find this path that will keep them where their heart gets to have its good space. But what they're producing and what they're thinking is still not in alignment. So it doesn't work in the long run. It works for whatever they're trying to do in that moment. But at some point, their heart space, when it comes into alignment, and then you say, what I want to produce with my body, with my work, is in alignment with what I feel is compassion for humanity in my heart. And what I'm thinking is my purpose. And I want all of that to align. And I'm pushing that out. That's when you see the change. Does that make sense?
I know where you're from, and my I know your better person definition, which I like. You're into alignment, I'm into openness. So I usually define a better person as a person who is more sensory, open of a surrounding or more aware, versus a bad person, so to say, who blocks the information from coming in. So, but, we both have our definition, but that's not necessarily where I was going, because this is the second episode and we're supposed to talk about the higher frequencies. So I wanted to see if we are both brave enough. That's where I used the word magic.
Mhm.
And I know that we've been around this business for a long time, and we know that there is a right way or a righteous way, and it requires humbleness, submission. You have to bow to these higher frequencies. That's all these forms and principle, which I'm sure you understand well what I'm talking about. But that's not the only way to get into that stuff. And there's, of course, what people would call, dark magic, or when you force the frequencies, when you try to control them, when you try to manipulate them, when you try to use manifestations and others to play with these frequencies. And some people have managed, obviously. So this was me more trying to put it out there and people listening wanted to take first your take on this. But as an understanding for people, there's always an easy way, the fast way, and you can play with stuff you shouldn't play. And there's obviously a long, hard road. And so where's your take on the dark magic?
I feel like you got to play with it all. I'm a play with it, see where it takes you. Half of the time, I think that what happens is humans come up with their boxes that they want to keep everybody in, which is why I've been on this message of you are God lately, right? It's these boxes that humans have created for ourselves that are like, okay, well, if we get beyond this box, now it's blasphemy. Well, who said it was blasphemy? God says it's blasphemy. Well, who told you that? God told me that. Now, God told you specifically that, but somebody else, did God tell that person that? You know what I mean? We get into like the ineffable of it all, which is what I've been trying to, move towards. This idea that humans created words with our brains, right? To give limits, even filters, so that we can have the conversation, right? But what ends up happening is we say things like dark magic, right? Which in my personal understanding of it, dark magic is anything, like I've mentioned before, that just does not align with the greater good. It is more in alignment with a singular good, right? So I would consider billionaire magic dark magic, let's say, right? Because, whereas others would like to think that a billionaire worked really hard to get to wherever they got to, there was some darkness that happened there, some real selfish, I'm not going to care about what others think or feel, or, if they get to go home to their families type feelings that went into that entity that is now a billionaire, if that makes sense, right? And to me, that's dark, right? But, people think dark magic, and now they're thinking Eye of Newt and, hair follicle and fire and, ball, the demon ball coming out and saying, good, my sir, And all of those things are what were created by humans as boundaries, ways to keep us in the box that we're supposed to be in, so that we can get to the next, the next conversation with someone without scaring everybody off, I guess. But if you take off that box and say, hey, I'm going to see what happens. I went to the depths. I saw no demon with the pitchfork, the pointy tail. What I did see was a picture of myself yelling at my wife, and that was pretty scary. And I'm I'm going to be open heart from now on, or whatever. It's different for everyone. You know what I mean? We have, the book that everyone, reads that says, okay, well, this is the end times, and this is what we are. Everything is scary now, and be scared. Don't say the things that you really want to say. But as you're working with frequency and moving outside of yourself, you start to notice that those were all just words and thoughts and feelings created by humans to keep us in this ball. So I say play with it.
I think that you're coming from a point where a frequency is a frequency and it's in itself neutral.
Yes.
And only if we frame it, we create a superficial or secondary meaning to it. So the frequency itself is neutral, but then depending how we transform it and translate it. So we basically building the context to the frequency.
Yes.
But for me, it's quite real, because I think our job, and for my job, in a sense, is to continuously give people a warning. It's okay to play with all that stuff, but if it's just always inwards pointing, if you take all of this, just point it inwards, it's what I would call dark magic, because you're the ends of the means that you just want to have more money or more power or more control. And you can do all of this. The path is there, no question.
Right. It's very selfish.
It's selfish, and therefore against the universe, which wants to have give and take, and it's supposed to flow.
Correct.
So there's a flow element. And while the spiritual path would be to, yes, learn and take all of these things in, but to give out in equal measures. So it's a fundamental philosophical question.
Yes.
It's a philosophical decision. And I guess it's our job in a podcast like this to honestly tell people that they have the option to use the spirit of the angels to make money, most probably, and they can, but be careful what you ask for.
I think that's the main thing, is be careful what you're asking for, because people, like I said, in our human mind, when we decide as humans to say, hey, now I'm going to cross this threshold and now work with something that's bigger than human mind, right? That's like, we're all limited in our human minds. And now we're saying, okay, I'm going to now work with an energy that is bigger than my human mind. But all that I could have come up with as constraints were going to be based off of what I know as a human in my human mind. So it is a matter of, you don't know what you don't know. And if you're moving across that threshold and you're, hey, whatever, happens, you do have to take that responsibility and say, hey, I created that, or I went into that unknowingly. It's not I try not to, I'm not really big on like closed thinking in any sense of the word. So whether it's, religion or spirituality, philosophically, I'm really just not a proponent of a closed mindset or a closed thinking. And so when someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to do this, but I'm scared of demons, or, I want to do this, but I'm scared of, collapse, then I'm like, well, that fear that you brought into it is what you're going to end up seeing, because that's that boundary that you've now come across. You've come to the end of that your human mind created. So I think that's what you'll end up seeing on the other side of that, regardless of the frequency you use.
We're slowly coming to the end, but I think what actually we've been saying here for almost 1 hour, when people are still with us, it's just everything is good. Just take it slow.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you and me basically are saying. I mean, don't be scared. There's no reason to. There's no danger in any of this. If you just take it slow, if you don't push it, if you don't force it, as you would most probably say, listen to your heart, and it will tell you when it's right to go to the next step. Just don't force it, and then it'll become natural. It'll be integrated into yourself and to your life.
Yes.
And just check with the world. Do are you a more productive, a more peaceful element in your surrounding? Are things, transforming also back outside? You're 100% on the right path. And if the disconnect is growing, if you get more lonely or whatever, you most probably should take this very serious and consult an expert like you or someone else who could maybe have a check-in and look at what people are doing. But before this comes to an end, this podcast, I must share with you something I've heard like 2 days ago, and it so blew my mind, and I really want to get your response from the frequency level. Not sure if I'll manage to tell this really quick. It was a podcast with a herbalist, and she's the second time around at my show. I really like her. I think she's a master herbalist. And we talked about a lot of things. I'm not going to repeat it. But her ultimate statement was that she's observing for more than 30 years her garden and her things. And she's noticed over time that there seems to be, on some level or the other, some kind of response to nature, to an overall human condition. Like that during Corona, certain flowers who were just sometimes there started booming like crazy, like unusual crazy. Or that in other years where there's certain stress in the society, that something else is coming up, which is more like a relaxing herb. So she's really noticed that there is some kind of form of response from nature, and it kind of blew my mind. How do you react on something like that?
Oh no, that makes total sense to me. Like the law of divine oneness, Philip, and that's like how it all starts, right? Is that everything is connected and everything is connected into the same source. So it would make sense that if in a world where something is going wrong, there would be something created to fix it that would bloom more. That I love that. Yeah, that makes total sense. And it would explain why right now we have so many people who are awakening, during a time where it feels like we're in this kind of a global crisis, right? So we end up with more people who are, coming online and saying, hey, here's an answer, or here's, something that I've noticed, because everything kind of seems like it's kind of out of whack sometimes.
For me, it's another calling to, again, take things slower. It's more and more seems to be the secret that the slowing down there. She's sitting in her garden, and she's just taking in the information that comes across, and now trying a lot the last couple of months to take in the vibration that come through with other people and so forth. We are also running and buzzing, and we're all spinning and having this need for the bigger frequencies or whatever's going on. I've recently come to understand that maybe you would get a lot more by just calming down, slowing down, opening your heart, opening your eyes, and trying to take in that actually all the information is there. We're just too busy to see them. And I leave the last words of wisdom for this podcast to you.
Well, that's why when I started, I tell you, we all start with grounding. We all start with no matter how far we're trying to go, we all start with grounding.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And we had a crazy beginning, so I'm having an unprofessional ending. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's stay consistent. And I hope we'll make the jacket one day. Thank you, Asia. Thank you very much.